In this session, we'll talk about the difference between education and training, how you need to do both, and we'll discuss the important steps that you need to consider to implement a solid program in your company. Every organization has people, and people must be developed if they are to do a good job. Some of that training we call technical training. For example, somebody in your factory doing a certain job. You must show them what to do, how to do it, when to do it. That's technical training. For example, a receptionist must know how to answer the telephone, what to say, how to answer questions from people who may be calling. But you know what? We make a terrible mistake when we stop only at technical training. We must, in this day and age, we must help our people to be developed behaviorally. Who am I? What can I do? What would make me better? How can I become a better communicator? So on and so forth. So there is technical training, and then there is behavioral training. That behavioral training I call education. And today, we'll discuss the differences between training and education and how you can make a spectacular job with your people, learning both, using both, and therefore hopefully performing better than you ever thought possible. I walked one day into a McDonald's. McDonald's is one of the world's most successful fast food restaurants. And a young, attractive woman behind the counter looked at me and she said, "Hello, sir. How may I serve you today?" And I said, "Well, I'd like to have a vanilla milkshake and an apple pie." And she said, "Sir, would you like a dessert to go with that?" I thought, sure, why don't you give me a hamburger and a Coca-Cola? You see what happened there? This woman was trained to sell desserts. If only we could sell enough sweet goods, we could make more money. But she did not stop short enough to think, to understand, to internalize that vanilla milkshake and apple pie are desserts. Her mind and her mouth did not work together, and she got herself in trouble. We do things like that, don't we? Training and education get in the way of excellent performance. Let me share with you today some major differences between training and education. Training teaches people what to do. Education teaches people what to be. Training is anchored to the past. In other words, the things that we have done and have done well, let's do more of them. Education looks towards the future. To accommodate change, training has to be unlearned. You must take this human being and you must make sure that they forget about all these things they have done in the past. And then teach them something new. Education can build upon the past. In education, you can go from the known to the unknown. You don't have to unlearn. You simply build in your mind on those things that you already know. Training deals with actions, with tasks. Education deals with thoughts and feelings. And thoughts and feelings are those determining factors for our behavior. We act because we think and we feel, and our actions become better when that really happens. Training teaches how. Education teaches why. If you expect your people to solve problems time and again, to address different circumstances with different people in different ways, and do a good job every time, you must teach them why, not only how, so that they can use this thinking process to make good things happen. Training focuses on procedures. Education focuses on people. And any organization and any business that you can think of if you were to take the people element out of it, what have we got left? Without people, you and I could not really accomplish much. Training focuses on the individual. Education focuses on the whole organization. And while an organization is the cumulative effect of individuals, it is a completely different person who is in the organization than that person who becomes like the fingers on one hand, come together to make great things happen. So we must concentrate on the organization, not only on the individual, if we expect teamwork to take place, if we expect results to be accomplished. Training teaches people to follow prescriptions. Here's what to do. Here's when to do it. Here's who to do it with. Education teaches people to make choices. You know what, my friends? You and I today are the sum total of the choices that you and I have made in our life up to this point. And you and I, tomorrow, next year, 5 years from now, will be the person or persons based on the choices we will make between now and then. It is imperative that we teach our people how to make choices that will strengthen our organization and will take our company onwards and upwards. Training, you might say, is a program. A, B, C, D, 1, 2, 3, 4. Education is a process. It is a journey. It is a way of thinking. It is the development of a mindset. Now, if we were to put together in your organization an educational program, that is to say, training of technical matter and education of behavioral matter, what are some pillars, what are some principles, what are some foundations that you must pay attention to make sure that things are done properly? I'd like to share with you 3 of those. Here's the first one. Number 1, integrated learning process. Integrated learning process. In other words, in your company, in your business, when you attempt to train somebody, to educate somebody, you must make sure that everything that you say and everything that you do is integrated. It all comes together. Let me share with you an example. Some companies, for example, will educate and train their salespeople on how to sell. But then they forget to bring the sales manager into this educational process and say, let us tell you what we have just taught your salespeople in your region. So here's what happens. We train this salesperson, and then we take the salesperson, put him back out in the field, and the salesperson goes back to the same environment from which he or she had come. The sales manager does not know the material that the salesperson learned, and therefore cannot carry it out in a functional way, in a real way in life. To really be integrated is to ensure that all layers of people who work together receive the same kind of education. And to make sure that the manager, for example, knows what to do with this salesperson once the salesperson has come back from some training session or some educational environment. So first, we must make sure that we have an integrated learning process. Second, we must make sure that the education that we give people in our organization is congruent. You know what happens in so many organizations, which absolutely surprises me and baffles me, is that we tell people certain things. In fact, we teach people certain things, and then we do things that are not congruent with what we taught them. What happens, I ask you? What happens to a person who works for you or with you, who goes to a seminar or a class and listens and learns some very significant information that could change his or her behavior, and then they come back to the same environment where they were in the first place, and they find that in that environment things are done differently? Do you honestly believe that this learned person is going to take this information and change the environment? You know what most of us do? Most of us will fall right back into the trap of what is, I'll do what my boss wants me to do. I'll do whatever the environment requires of me, because that's the safest way to do it. A principle about human beings might be this, that most people would rather be comfortable than be excellent. Most of us would rather be comfortable than be excellent. And if we would rather be comfortable, we would rather be what? Trained. Remember, training is a mechanical process. But to be educated, you ask me to go beyond the glass ceiling. You ask me to sort of stretch, become better, give more, do more, think in a wider spectrum. And that is more difficult for people to do. So organizations that truly want to change behavior, achieve more, are organizations that must ensure that the environment, the policies, the procedures, the behaviors of bosses, for example, are congruent with the ideas and the content and the material that people hear and learn. And the third very important foundation is to ensure that when we give people education and training, we develop the whole person. Now, to take the example of the salesperson again. Generally speaking, when you want to develop and train a salesperson, what do you want to do? You want to teach them some skills about selling. How to prospect, how to sell, how to overcome objections, how to close the sale, how to follow up, all of which are very valuable principles for selling skills. But might that really develop that salesperson completely? No. Why? Because if that salesperson is to become a superb salesperson, he or she must first also know other areas that actually affect their behavior. For example, we have to enable the salesperson to learn how to communicate, how to speak, how to listen, how to observe, how to write. We must, of course, help that salesperson to learn some issues about his or her own behavior, personal and professional development, you might argue. And then also help them understand